Hi guys, Brexiteer Andrew Neil from the pro-Tory Spectator has some bad news for the European Union. It is in decline. It might as well close up shop and go away. Things may get so bad that Andrew may need to leave his chateau in France and move back to the United Kingdom. Now, while some of the things he says are correct, it sounds more like a bitter old Brexiteer who refuses to admit that he was wrong, and instead of coming up with a benefit for the UK being outside the European Union, he just wants to badmouth the bloc. Have a listen to this.
Now you look at Europe, which in my view is a continent in real trouble and a continent in serious decline. The European Union's economy, even without Britain, used to be the same size as the United States. Now it's a fraction of the United States. Europe is in economic decline. It has a revanchist Russia already causing mayhem in the Ukraine, and who knows if it is allowed to win there, where it will go from there. At heart in Europe, you have a problem of governments are too big, taxation is too high, and regulation is omnipresent.
Okay, typical response from a Brexiteer. Okay, so let's go through each of these. First of all, he said how the European Union is in decline. Now, I've been hearing this argument from Eurosceptics both in the United Kingdom and outside the United Kingdom since 2002. Over 20 years. The European Union is on the brink of collapse. The European Union is in decline. Well, the opposite seems to have been true over the last 20 years. Now, the European Union is definitely facing problems, but I'll get to that in a moment. Then he talked about Ukraine. Well, no, then he said about the economy. Now, we're talking about over 20 states in the European Union. Member states, 27 member states. Each of them have their own economies. Some of them are up, some of them are down. And it's constantly changing. So I don't know how you can say, well, the entire European economy is down. Because some of them are improved. For example, states like Ireland, their GDP is constantly increasing. Other states like Germany are perhaps going through a recession at the moment. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. It's quite complicated. But you can't take the European Union as a bloc and compare it to the United States because they're completely different. Now, when he talked about Ukraine, a red flag was the Ukraine, but we'll leave that. But yes, Ukraine, what's going to happen after the war? When the war ends, will Ukraine be one nation joining the European Union? Will there be a border, a buffer zone between Western Ukraine and Eastern Ukraine, or with Russia, or what's going to happen? We don't know. That's between Russia and Ukraine to decide. It won't be the European Union, it won't be the United States. And finally, this idea that Europe is too big, its governments are too big, taxes are too high, and regulation is omnipresent. Okay, these are Brexiteer arguments. We need to have a smaller government, libertarian, small government Tory ideas, less regulation, because we need to allow businesses to do as they please. And he thinks these things are hamstringing the European Union and hamstringing European economies. Well, we saw recently how the European Union was able to stand up to Apple and convince it to do as it wishes. So it shows that the European Union still have significant clout on the world stage. But the other points here is that he's not focusing on Europe's real problem. And I think Europe's real problem is immigration. Many countries in Europe have aging populations and they have declining populations. So they have fewer young people and more older people. And what they need is immigration. They need to bring in more people from abroad to work in manufacturing, agriculture, service sector, everything. And what you have as a problem in Europe is right-wing governments who are anti-immigration. Look at what happened in Hungary, look at what's happened recently in the Netherlands, Italy, for example, as well. You have governments who are anti-immigration, and this is damaging their economies because they need immigrants. They need young people to come in and work in sectors where there are not enough native of the native population, and you have an older population growing all the time. So Europe does have real problems of integration, problems and I mean that on a nation level. We're talking about nations that aren't integrating to work together for the benefit of each other and the bloc, and we have a demographic problem that needs to be resolved. But for a Brexiteer, the problems Europe have is there's too much regulation, taxes are too high, and the government is too big. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.